There's no clearer mirror of a nation's moral condition than the way it treats the stranger at its gates. And by that measure, Britain's asylum system is now a shattered reflection, one warped by cruelty, chaos, and corruption. The case of Imran Mullah, a Home Office civil servant who pocketed thousands in bribes to manipulate asylum outcomes, is not a bizarre aberration, it's a symptom of institutional collapse. And in this collapse, both the desperate migrant and the dishonest official become players in a theatre of mutual deceit choreographed by a system that fails on every single level. The asylum rejections that have been fast-tracked through the system have now blocked the courts with appeals. Imran Mullah was not a rogue agent operating in a vacuum. He was a fully trained executive officer entrusted with the sacred duty of determining who deserves the protection of the British state. Instead, he abused his access to confidential data and cold-called rejected asylum seekers, offering to reverse decisions for a fee. 3,500 from a Bangladeshi man, and attempted 2,000 from a Turkish national, and crucially, he did this while under investigation. This wasn't just corruption, it was predation. Mullah's actions exploited the desperation of men who had fled persecution, were clinging to hope, and his conviction is welcome, but the deeper scandal is that such manipulation was even possible, and if Mullah did it, who else is doing it? Mullah didn't hack into the system, it was the system. What kind of structure allows this to happen? The structure of inadequacy and stupidity, the structure of the Home Office, this behemoth that is unanswerable to anyone, that cannot be contacted, a useless institution ruled by a series of complete wallies. Priti Patel, Suella Braverman, Yvette Cooper, complete and utter twits, and begun with the principles of Theresa May. This is what happens when you claim to institute a hostile environment. A hostile environment, it's a code name for laziness and inadequacy. One answer might be a bureaucracy buckling under pressure and paralysed by indecision. And according to David Bolt, the UK's former and now returning Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, the asylum system is unmanageable. Hotels house over 32,000 asylum seekers with no realistic prospect of rehousing them before the next election. Appeals are rising, refusals are inconsistent, decisions are often wrong. And Starmer's government, like its Conservative predecessor, continues to promise a grip on the system, yet delivers only gestures. The Rwanda policy may be dead, but the dysfunction that gave birth to it remains alive and well, and all the while gangs continue to exploit the channel crossings, not because they are currently cunning, but because the British system is so easily gamed and so sluggish in response. And you think, oh, stop the boats, that whine from Nigel Farage, when the real asylum seekers, when the real illegal migrants are coming here by aeroplane or on the back of lorries. And no one's talking about that, because that's not a headline grabber. Let's pause on a disturbing thought. In a system this broken, bribery starts to look, if not defensible, then at least understandable. The Bangladeshi man who paid Mullah had been rejected. He knew the appeal process could take years, and that even if he won, he might remain stuck in a hotel limbo. £3,500 might have seemed a rational cost for freedom. And it is. It is. When the system doesn't work, people turn to alternatives. Why? Because they've been told that's the only way to get through. The only way to get through. And that's how the smugglers work, and that's how the traffickers work. It's the only way to get through. This isn't asylum seekers doing something deceitful. This is asylum seekers using the only way to get through. Because the Home Office is so unbelievably useless, controlled by a government that's so unbelievably paralysed, like its predecessor, the Conservative government. It's a true obscenity. When public trust in the state is so degraded, private deceit rushes in to fill the vacuum. We create conditions where the poorest must choose between deportation and corruption, where the civil servants paid to enforce the law see personal enrichment as the most rational path. Ministers talk of smashing people smuggling gangs, but as Mr. Bolt noted with brutal honesty, organised crime doesn't disappear, it simply adapts. You cannot eradicate it with slogans. You can only reduce its appeal by making the legal system work. And to make this legal system work, we should be giving migrants cards so they can go into the legal system, so they can pay tax, so they can find their own accommodation, so they can demonstrate how much they want to be part of our system. What we have is a deeply British malaise, pretending everything is under control while quietly letting chaos reign. The Home Office spokesman declared, without irony, that they expect the highest standards from asylum officials. This in the same week that one such official was jailed for selling asylum outcomes like train tickets. Meanwhile, Downing Street insists there's enough housing stock. They should spend a night in a hotel room with 5 strangers and no legal certainty, and then repeat that claim. Yvette Cooper needs to grow up. This is a national disgrace, wrapped in a bureaucratic farce, when honesty becomes a luxury for the poor and deceit a career move for civil servants. We no longer are talking about immigration, we're talking about the moral bankruptcy of the state. And we should have been having this conversation years ago, because this started with Theresa May's stupidity, and it has continued and continued and continued with Robert Jenrick and all the dumpsters that have followed through the Home Office, kowtowing to the civil servant's stupidity and laziness. The asylum system was never meant to be a lottery, let alone a marketplace, but today it is both. And unless the government finds the political will to fund proper decision-making, proper housing, build proper trust, open up proper legal routes, the British asylum mess will remain what it is. Not just a crisis of migration, but a crisis of national integrity and a blight on our national conscience and our national reputation. The Home Office is a disgrace, and it needs to be cleaned up.